Good evening. Good evening. Happy Mommy Mondays. Kia Ortiz here to talk about part 2 of father wounds. When you get in, as always, let us know who's here. Chime in the comments. You're going to want to be a part of today's conversation. And so, for those of you new, welcome to Mommy Mondays. We are a group of mothers, professionals, people that just want to get truth, honesty, and understanding when it comes to this thing called mothering. And so, like no other conversation we have ever had, we are talking about the role of a father. We are addressing daddy issues and how it impacts how we mother and how we are in our marriages, how we are as wives. And I say this is different than most of our conversations because most of the times we stick to things that are just solely relevant to mothers. But today's conversation includes fathers. So if you have a father, if you have someone that you want to be a part of this conversation, or at least hear the dynamic roles between mothering and fathering, and how important they both are to each other, I strongly encourage you to have them get on live now or share this video with them. We are people, especially mothers, believe that the father role is very important, but we also understand there's not a lot of conversation around how fatherhood impacts children, the mother, and what are some things that come up as adults. So I'm gonna give it a few minutes for people to join in. We have a special guest today, an awesome father, an awesome husband. He is my own husband. He is amazing. We've been married now for 10 years, but I've known him since I was 15, 16. We both come from homes that had divorce, and we're both trying to understand this role of male and female in the household, because of course you guys understand that there's a lot of conversations around, mom's mental load and where are the fathers and conversations like that. But what does it look like having a father in the home, and how do we make room for them to do what we wish our fathers may have done? And so if you had tuned in last Monday, I was very raw, very candid about my experience. So I'm making sure that we hear each other okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Okay. I was very, and to be honest, you guys, I cried after last Monday. And those that know me, it don't take much to make me cry. Um, but it made me cry because it was a lot. It was a lot being that open and vulnerable, but it was a lot to hear from other moms, people that I cared about, hearing their journey in understanding the daddy issues and how it impacts. We talked about how daddy issues impacts our relationship with God, accepting him as father. We talked about how it can impact um, how we interact with other people. I shared that with my own husband. I have said to him, I don't need you. And he's going to he's going to share his perspective on a lot of things that I shared last week. But we pretty much concluded with, how do we understand the role of a father, um, or having a male figure, without feeling like we're being belittled as a mother, or that we're making some type of mistake if we are in a single parent situation. How do we make the best of it? But also, how do we and when do we? That's the key that we talked about. When do we address these daddy issues that maybe we've pushed to the back front because we don't necessarily want to deal with it or realize that it's an issue? How do we now bring it to the forefront in a safe space, in a space that understands that we're not that little girl anymore and we're responsible for our own healing? So that's where we are today. And I'm very excited because I've been doing more and more research, like I've told you guys before. I'm going to school for psychology, but I always want to present to you guys information, stats, research, so that it's not solely based off of my perspective or even based off of the general populace when it comes to motherhood, but actually getting some tools that we can use. And so before we get John on, I want to show you another video from the speaker that I shared with last week, Jordan Peterson. I strongly encourage you, go on YouTube, look him up. He has a lot of conversations when he's talking about the mother role, the father role, and the dynamics of parenting. But this is one video that I wanted to share with you guys. And then we'll dive into today's conversations, father wounds, part 2. Are your daddy issues impacting how you mother and how in our marriages? So without further ado, here we go.
And like, if you can't handle that, grow the hell up. It's a hell of a thing not to have the confidence of your father. It's really, really hard on people. You know, if your father is someone who says to you, you can do it. I really believe that you can do it. I'll support you in what you're doing. I think that you can sort it out, and then acts towards you in that way. That's a gift that really almost no one else can provide you with. Mothers obviously provide, I think they provide the same kind of gift, but earlier, you know, because the mother has to take care of the infant when the infant is just completely dependent. And so, and this is Erickson's idea too. Erik Erikson is the mother is the person who establishes the relationship that allows the developing person to manifest trust, real trust. While you're being carried, for crying out loud, you know, you can be dropped. The mother's also the source of food. You get people who have damaged father figures. So the father is an encouraging figure and who allows the individual, at least in principle, to support the catastrophe of being voluntarily. And I believe this, like, 'cause one of the things I've noticed about kids who are, let's say, neurologically intact, there's lots of reasons why people can develop psychological disorders, and some of them are physical. But imagine that you take a child who's physically healthy and you put them in a given environment. My intuition has been that the child needs to have at least one positive role model within imitation distance. Now, sometimes he or she can sort of piece that together fragmentarily, also from popular media images, you know, the images of the heroes in movies and so on. But it's really helpful to have at least one person in your immediate environment who is manifesting the pattern that characterizes individual success. And so maybe it's something like, if that positive role model isn't there, then the easiest default is to a victimized group identity, you know, of secondary gains. And so if we're going to be critical in our analysis about victimization culture, we might ask, well, what benefits does it bring to the people who adopt it? So
I'll put in the chat or in the description this live, the video, for you guys to look at it. But the reason why I wanted to share this video in particular is because we shared last week about how we can romanticize the father. That's where he was talking about you build these images and these thoughts of what a father would be like, or what that absent person would be like. And so you can kind of romanticize that thought process, which then can make us put on this victimization type posture. And so we'll continue the conversation with Mr. Jonathan Ortiz.
What's up?
I'm still getting used to the mustache.
Yeah, it's here.
Oh my goodness, you guys, John grew out his mustache, and I was joking because if you know him as a teenager, we were looking at some pictures and I was like, yo, the way you look now, you look like, hey, John, your dad's here. The front home is trying to get you. You look so much older and like how you would be if you were your father, you know?
Crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. I like it. But so what do you think about the video? We'll start there.
So yeah, two things I mean kind of stood out to me from the video, or three things. One was the confidence of the father,
Mm-hmm.
or the confidence that the father instills. The second thing that caught my attention was how when he said the mother establishes the relationship, and then the default to the victim mentality. Those are the
Right.
three things that kind of, yeah, those three things kind of stood out to me. And if you remember a few months ago, or I don't even remember when this was, when I had preached about basically like a victim versus like a victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of stood out to me, and how sometimes we get those things mixed. And like sometimes we put ourselves in a victim mentality because we felt that we were done wrong. We weren't really done wrong. And so therefore we then kind of put ourselves on a level of with people who actually were victims. And so, being able to kind of dive into that, I really, enjoy, as you know. And so those are the kind of three things that for me kind of stood out.
I like that you say that because I mean, even me, I have and know my father. You know your father, and we've had a male role in the house, but we can kind of group ourselves with not having a father, even though we have a father, we know our father. And so then because we can identify with maybe the disappointment that we have of our own father, we can lump ourselves in with that. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a lump in my throat already. Hi, Jesse. God bless you. Um, I it kind of makes me feel like, well, then my complaints aren't valid. And even if we did have a father in the household, I hope, with me making this statement that you can kind of process with me. If you know your father and your father was in the house, um, but maybe he did not live up to the full expectation of a father, is not the same as not having a father completely, which I feel like can kind of be good or bad, because it's kind of like, then would we rather just not have the father in the home completely, or would we want the father in the home and feel that amount of neglect of, I'm here, you're here, but you still don't want me, or you still don't want to be
Yeah.
all in?
Yeah. I think it's same with people who go through abuse, right? Who had their parents or their mom and their dad, but it wasn't a good household. And so there's so many factors, and so there's so many ways that we can look at where people come from. The biggest thing for me when it comes to these type of conversations is being mindful. Being mindful of the person that you're speaking with, being mindful of where their story is coming from, being empathetic. I like to put myself in people's shoes, kind of mentally as much as I can as they're talking. And I do this when I'm watching movies or TV shows. What would it be like to be, and I think of probably the closest thing I can to that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, I kind of uh, create my questions
Mm-hmm.
to then better understand. And so for those who know me, who think, man, like John's always asking questions, or feel like I'm challenge you in a certain way, and a lot of times I'm challenging myself to understand. And just through that process, it just may happen to be that it challenges you in your responses. And so it really takes being able to just identify who we're having the conversation with, and then just being mindful of their story, being mindful, or their being able to hear and listen where their pain is rooted, or where their hurt is rooted, and then being able to kind of build clarity for both people during that conversation. So that's kind of my approach.
I'm kind of chuckling a little bit because I mean, I like how you're talking about like as if you're talking to everybody else, but y'all, he does this to me all the time.
Do it to everybody.
Well, I'm letting them know, like, if you pull John aside and he's asking you questions, and it might seem like it's prying or probing, like that's just who he is. Like he's a teacher, and that's why I really wanted you a part of this conversation because really you can ask a lot of fathers that are present in the home. You know, hey, have you seen daddy issues come up with your child's mother or in your relationship with her? But I really wanted to bring you on because the one thing that really, I guess, sparked me even thinking about the dynamics between a mother and a father. You guys, it came off of an argument. And let me say this real quick. We want to be clear in what you were also saying. We're mindful that every family, every household is not like ours. Actually, every household should not be the same because it's not the same people. So everybody's dynamic is going to be different. What we're sharing is our family dynamic. We're not oblivious to the fact that we are a two-parent home. We have a mother and a father that are very engaging with their children. So if you're a single parent or if you're co-parenting, we feel like a lot of these things we're going to talk about can help all family dynamics, but just to challenge people as a whole to go out and do the research and figure out the language, because it's no longer acceptable to just say kids don't need their father or I can do it all on my own, when research is out there that for the best benefit of the child that we all want is for it to be a male and female dynamic surrounding the child, either be in the home or finding somebody that can help with that, like family members and stuff. So that's what I want to say. But y'all, this man
and I knew. So from the moment I even asked you before you tell the story, I had knew hours or probably days before that I wanted to ask, not really ask, that I wanted to kind of put it on your radar. But again, right, we go back to being mindful of the person. And so I, taking all of that into consideration, now you can tell the story.
So I guess that's the beauty about you asking questions. You do your diligence and thinking about your question and taking the time to kind of develop it, because I was complaining to him about how I could not get things done with Ava, because Ava is I feel like she's our most rambunctious child. She climbed out of things much quicker than the boys. Like she's Ava. Okay. So, of course, with him working, he's expecting the house to be clean when he comes home, food to be cooked, things of that nature, which is our family dynamic role. That is one of the things we've agreed upon, that, I'm at home. These are the things that I do. These are the things that he does. So the expectation, I know the expectation. And so when he would come home and not see things done, of course, he has the right to question and be irritated. And so when he said to me, he goes, well, I just don't get the same response from her that you do. She's not like, basically you're like, she's not that way with me. So then I got angry and I'm like, well, are you saying that like I'm a wimp? Like, are you saying like I can't, like the kid is just walking all over me? And then you shared the research that you did. Share it.
From share it. So
hey Nigel.
Yeah, because you had I had noticed, that and for me to bring something up, it has to happen quite a bit, right? Or to me to like think about it or be like, man, okay, something is happening. And so when you would share those things and share them more often, I've learned that we have such a wide resource of information, the internet. And so I started to kind of just Google differences between kids and their fathers, kids and their mothers, how kids act, and kind of sort of, and there's like a scientific evidence that proves that children will act differently with mom than they do with dad. they will sleep longer with dad than they do with mom. And that was one of the things that you shared, is that she doesn't nap. She's not sleeping. And then I would get home, hold her, and she'll sleep for like 3 hours, and you'd be so hurt in your feelings about it.
It still vexes my spirit.
And I'm just like, yeah, she wants that. Or even with the twins or with Levi, I always felt the response was just different. And I remember that conversation, and and I remember saying, like, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm not saying you don't get that. All I'm saying is that my experience has not been your experience. I'm not getting that. And I remember that you kind of like just stopped and looked for like a good hot second. And I can see like your irritation and anger just kind of like decrease into like it's just something else. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what it was for you in that moment. Maybe you can share that, but that's what kind of brought a better understanding into just the dynamics of us in the
Yeah.
home.
For me, when you said that, it made me livid. One, I was mad because, like Christina said, she said, it's not fair. Girl, it is not fair. Especially for you to have just said something and the child do exactly the same thing that you said that they don't do with somebody else, especially the father. And so it's kind of like, one, I was irritated with that. And then two, it made me feel like you were better than me, even though I'm doing
But
everything I could possibly do. You just come in with masculine energy. And that's even when I tell the kids to do something and you put some bass on it and they do it right away. I'm kind of like, so am I doing a bad job? Like, I don't understand.
so then from that perspective, there was those things have to stem from somewhere, right? And so when we talk about the issues that we experience from how, we grew up, or, our upbringing, where, what would you say developed that in you um to feel that way? I mean, just without anybody saying anything, by just seeing the action, and then to automatically mentally go into a space that says this, and this, and that. Do you feel like, I mean, mothers go through that often? You feel like that's a part of motherhood? I'm curious to know at at moments, when the mind goes to a certain place, well, why does that happen?
First of all, this is mommy Mondays. You don't ask me, don't you? Oh no, man. Like, and I think that's part of this like journey, right? Because even Christina shared about the need for validation from a male figure, from your father. And
Mhm.
so then it kind of develops in you like it's this innate thing in my mind that I'm not enough. And as much as my mom, and my mom loves me to death. And I shared how I have a lot of mother figures, always encouraging, always there for me. But it's something about when a man says, you know, you're doing a good job. Like, and I didn't feel like, even if you had said to me, hey, you're doing oh God, I need you to probably put this in your language bank because I'm about to get teary eyed. If you had said to me, hey, you're doing an amazing job, you're an amazing mother. I'm not getting that from her. And it may be something that you're not doing it wrong at all. It may just be how she responds to me, our relationship. And one thing you have come back with is some solutions for me based off your research on what I can do to help with that. um, but my first thing came to my mind was, okay, here I'm not a good enough. And then the next thing that came to my mind is, now I need to come forward with some masculine energy to get the results that you get. And I think as a lot of females do without the dad, if we don't have that masculine energy, we take over.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, from now on, you going to sleep. You know what I mean? Like,
So, yeah, so like going off of our experiences, right? How would you say that has shown in our, day to day in the last 10 years?
you want me to bring up the garage where you had to take that tone with me?
The garage.
You said there's only. How exactly did you say it, Jonathan, when you yelled at me? Tell
I
me.
yelled at you.
When you hurt my feelings. And y'all, I was going ham when I was going in. I forgot what we were arguing about, but I was going in. What you not gonna do? And da 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 da. And I
Yeah,
think I was
so
like,
yeah, so it was weird. So like what initially I guess even with this conversation, right? I don't know if you remember, we were in the room and I think I asked you, hey, have you ever thought about or considered like I know like Mommy Mondays, I know you hit on a lot of, motherhood and the mom and the child, and I'm like trying to figure out how to ask this question without offending you or without you feeling like that I'm coming from a place that I'm really not coming from. But it was about
no, not that time. We'll touch on that one. The Ohio time.
oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, and we just talked about this I think yesterday too. But yeah, we had got into an argument over a game. And it was weird because I think it's important to know because even in the game that we talked about, I think a few days ago, we addressed kind of like where that came from
Yeah.
and why that was the way it was. But at the end of the day, I told you because you said something, you walked away, or I don't remember, but I remember saying that there's not going to be two men in this house.
He yelled at me and said that, y'all. And I walked away and he came in the house, slammed the door, and he basically said that to me. And I'm not gonna lie. So you see it in
and
movie,
I
right? Go ahead.
and I think you said something like I don't know because you said something about like oh because I don't have the private parts or something like
Oh,
that
I
or and then I
was
was
like,
like
because I don't
I
have a
said
penis, what I say
and I
don't go.
said and I said right now it doesn't. But yeah, but it was weird because like 20 minutes later the whole dynamic changed. And so I don't know when I said that, was there something that kind of clicked in you?
I'm gonna say
Um,
this, but it doesn't give you permission to ever yell at me again. Not only did I like it, but I needed it. Nobody talks to me that way. I mean, Poppy has, my stepfather. My dad has, but when Jesus. I remember my dad yelled at me and I'm automatically at the house. But when you said it, it was you laying down the law in our house that where my role resides. But I don't know. It made me feel like you you said it because you cared and you're not going to leave me. I know that sounds weird, but you talking to me that way, it secured me like I'm going to stay with you, but I'm not going to stay with you trying to compete with me. Like only one of us can wear the pants in this household. And so it made me kind of take it back. Like one, I didn't realize that I had taken that position, but I want you to be in my life. I don't want to lose you, especially lose you because I want to compete with you. And so automatically when you said that to me, it made me shut up and I listened because I don't want
and
to lose
I
my
and I
mind.
remember I think I followed you upstairs and we had company in the house. And we had like people that were close. We had people that were close to us. So it wasn't like, you know, it was people that we trusted. And so I remember we were supposed to go to the zoo that day with our kids and I think like we didn't go to like an hour later, but I remember going upstairs following you and then we continued to really kind of like peel back like what was happening, why it was happening. And so even though I said it in a loud voice, it wasn't in a point where like I'm just gonna be loud and then you gotta be quiet. And then that's just gonna be the end of it. It was, no, we're not leaving until we figure out like what's happening and what's
That's
going on.
that's what I think it is. The fact that you were like, because you had every right to leave the house and storm off and be angry. I've never been in a type of relationship where people can be that heated for one another and nobody leave. Like, I think I was expecting you to leave me, and the fact that you came and you stayed and you're like, no, I'm really willing to fight this out, even if I'm going to fight you. That made me like, dang, I can't yell, scream, cuss you out, make male anatomy references, and you leave. Like, you're here to stay, so I have to face this.
But that's what a lot of people do now, right? And so our society, a lot of times, it's like, you're gonna take me or you're gonna leave me. Like, take me how I am, or you don't take me at all, take it or leave it. And it's easy for people to say, like, I'm gonna go somewhere else that where my behavior is acceptable. And so what that does is that kind of that restricts people so much from growing. Anybody that I connect with that says, "Hey man, this is just how I am, take it or leave it," like, um, that type of mentality just solidifies you're unwilling to grow, you're unwilling to listen, and it doesn't mean I'm gonna leave you. It means that my approach might be different, or my approach might change. But you know, as I said from the beginning, that curiosity that I have to understand, it feeds in even into those moments, because I'm like, where is this coming from? I really want to kind of know now. And so I guess that's a way. I guess God created me to be able to navigate those type of situations. And my prayer, my hope is that we all find our way of what that is. And it's not about, like, you say something, and when we talk about even other things or roles with men and women, there's so much confusion, there's so much assumption, there's so much of this societal expectation of what's to be or not to be. A lot of double-minded things that really, they upset me, but I'm willing to talk about it. I'm willing to hear what you have to say and say, okay, well, I hear with that. So what happens then in this? Oh, well then, no, 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 that can't, and so I just want to talk about it. I want to bring understanding, because I know we're not used to having those type of conversations. And so, um, that's where I come from.
And I appreciate that. I mean, right now we ain't having one of those in-depth conversations,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it because it makes you stop and think of the source versus just going off an impulse. And even how that relates to our children, because our children have seen us argue. Um, and Jelani has come and like, well, do you remember when we were buying the car and he was like, "Mommy, why were you yelling at Daddy?" And
Yeah.
that made me mad because he was yelling at me too. Like,
He got my back.
I'll throw all y'all in the trash. Like, because I'm like, how is it my fault? You know what I mean? And then, because what did he say? He said, "Mommy, when you were yelling at Daddy last earlier, like instead of yesterday, it's last
Yesterday.
earlier." And so there's been plenty of times, and I thank God because we've kind of found a way to. We want to show our kids when we disagree so that they can see how to resolve issues together. Because I think that's the other thing society says you're not supposed to argue in front of your kids. I think that's an important thing for them to see. One, to see that there's a way to resolve issues, and sometimes you're going to have to get dirty to get to it. But as long as two people love each other and are in agreement, you have the right to hash that out. But then two, it solidifies in them that mommy and daddy aren't going to leave you. Like, you can do something wrong, you can upset us, we're going to talk about it, but we don't get to leave each other. And that's something that I've never had, in the sense of, in my mind, even with having step parents, I've always thought, well, if it gets bad enough, leave, and I get to leave. And so I think even when we talk about mother and father roles, even if there's a co-parenting situation, it's important for our kids to see the feminine side, the masculine side, and how things kind of, follow suit, especially for our sons in being the male figure and eventually a leader, and then our daughters being at a place to understand that submission doesn't mean that you're less than.
Hmm. Yeah, and hurt people hurt people. I think at some point, no matter what we go through, there's a time in our life where we ask ourselves, what is wrong? We ask ourselves, why am I this way? We ask ourselves just a super important question, of why so and so. And I think we have a responsibility, and it gets to a point where it is on us. It is on us to address the trauma. It is on us to address the issues that we have carried for so long, because eventually they're going to come out, and if not one, numerous places, whether it's relationships, work, parenting, it's going to come out. And so, um, do we have, or do we want, or do we desire the ability to have that type of self-awareness for the things that we've been through? Do we take it as a victim mentality, or do we say, like, man, we got to get it right?
Yeah, which then goes back. See what? Okay, Papa, play that tablet. See, this is what happens when you're not here. Like, y'all, normally Mommy Mondays, John is here. Nobody bothers me. Ugh, like it's frustrating. And I think that's another thing that I wanted to bring up as well. Because I feel like we're talking about the masculine parts that a woman can adopt if she does not have a male role in her life. That aggression, that anger, that thing that comes out of me. And I think it's important, even as moms, like, for example, depression. Sometimes we think about depression as just being sad, but depression is also a result of suppression, but it can present itself as angry outbursts. And so having you in the home, it helps me kind of mediate that, in the sense of when I just can't, I pass them on to you. But I don't, because I see also too, when fathers are in the home, I see mothers doing this thing of, well, you just wait till your daddy gets home. And so then it kind of shifts that dynamic, like mommy can't, but daddy can. And I know me personally, I don't like that, because then when you're not around, like if you're deployed or something, like I ain't got you to hand off to. But I appreciate the fact, as a male, when I'm at that place, not only are you just somebody here that can give me that space from the kids, but it helps ease that part of me that has anxiety. I don't know where this comes from, and it could be because we're so used to females being solely responsible for kids, but it alleviates that thing in me that makes me question how kids are when they're with you, right? I always think that they're starving, they're dying, they're going to need mommy, and you're just like,
So yeah, so that was another point, right? When you asked me about the video, and it says that how mothers establish the relationship. So I wrote down this sub note, right? How kids wean off of mothers, but do mothers know how to wean off of their children? So that was a sub note that I wrote down, because I do see you do that, right? Or what I gotta tell you,
go away.
leave, go, because a man could take that a certain way too, right? Like if a woman, like if a woman does that, that could create like this insecurity in the man of, does she trust me, or am I doing the right thing, or it can create like a thought, depending on who it is. Not saying it does with me, but then again, it's just thoughts that pop into my mind. Like, man, I wonder if, like, if this happens in like numerous relationships, man, if the guy is insecure, if the guy, he could probably take this as, the wrong way. right? And then because he's afraid to be honest, because then he might offend, then he doesn't say nothing. So he suppresses his feelings towards his spouse, who he's supposed to share it with, and it's honest and it's nothing offensive about it, but she'll take it to be offensive because she's home with them. And so even though that doesn't give her the right, he'll think it gives her the right because, again, that's what society says, that because you just be quiet, just she said it, so she's right, and so the wife is always right, and then happy wife, happy life, and right, and then there's just like this rabbit hole of things that, and then at the end of the day, the guy just doesn't say anything. But at the end of the day, he might go out with his friends and say like, you know, he might see one of your friends like, hey, I would like to take, tell your wife to call me. Want to go? Oh yeah, I gotta see, she's okay with me watching the kids. See if she feels comfortable, and it becomes like this subtle acceptance of like this thought that out of nowhere, just because of something that could be perceived as I don't trust you, when it's really your insecurity or your struggle to let go. But now it has translated to the man feeling like, am I a good dad? Can I do this the right way? Am I feeding you? Am I changing you? Am I right? And so it's interesting how just the smallest things that we struggle with and how those things are portrayed can create something in the other person when it's not really about the person. And that's the depth. That's the how deep it is to have these things and to try to navigate marriage and parenting, that it could be so subtle and so contagious to other people. That's the danger of it.
Well, I want to say I don't mean it.
No, no,
But
I
which
know.
I know, and I appreciate you saying that because you never said it to me in that way, but I could definitely see that in the sense of even when the kids were babies, they cry. I'm the one that automatically jumps up and gets them. And I think by Levi, that's when I kind of, especially because the twins wore me out so much, I'm like, you go get a child, you go feed a baby, or like even on down to remember the twins, I didn't want to pup at all, huh?
No, and it's crazy because even in those moments, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do it.
And women get mad about that, right? Women say, oh, I wish he would take the initiative. I wish he would just come and do, because he knows the kid needs to be fed. He knows the kids need to be changed, but let you come up and like, no, I got it. Or I remember me specifically saying, I solely wanted to breastfeed. Like I didn't want to bottle feed. And when the lady had said to me, well, it might be good for you to get some rest, so pump so daddy can feed her. I'm like, no, breastfeeding's on me. Da 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 da. And then like again, I'm struggling with a child. I give them a bottle. They take a bottle from you as long as I'm not in the room. And science proves that if the child smells the mom, they're going to want the mom. But if I leave the room, they'll take the bottle. They'll never take a bottle from me because, wow, when the tatas are right there. But from you, but I would have never understood that if I did not. And unfortunately, it had to wear me down to get to that point to understand it. But until I realized, no, he's fully capable to do this. So let me do this and back off. And that's a hard thing to do as a mom. But again, in my mind, it's automatic. It's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to take them to doctors. It's my responsibility to make sure they're fed. It's my responsibility to do all these things. And if you say to me, and one thing I can commend you is, I don't know if this has changed because I've given you space or because you've been doing your own research on understanding the dynamic, but I see you more and more. We call it taking the initiative, but I say you just doing your part because we both have the kids. I see you saying like today, I'm trying to cook and do different stuff. Okay, I'm gonna take the kids for a walk. That wasn't, hey, can I take the kids for a walk? I'm taking the kids for a walk and you left. And though I needed that if you would have asked me, I'm like, no, it's okay. Put them in front of the TV. And I do that all the time. And you're just like, can you shut up and let me do my job? Like,
to take initiative has to be given to, and even today,
I know.
you were unwilling. I knew it, but something inside of you was like, I can cook, do a science project, take care of Ava, get ready for this, and do this all at the same time. And I asked you, I said, are you sure you want to do that project with them right now? Why don't you just save it for tomorrow? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm here anyways. And so even with that, if we look at, and this is not to like slight or anything, but let's just say, right, the science project in a sense, and these are just parts of conversations that you kind of like when you do an event or you do a project and you come back for the after action report and we say, okay, guys, everybody, how did it go? Let's hear it. And so it's just kind of like speaking about those things, I can sense like the frustration and some anxious part of you during that. And I wonder, do you think I can't see that? Or
I think you think that I got it under control, which you should, because I'm the mama and I can do
it
it.
does not look like way to me at all. Which then I'm like, just I'm gonna take them for a walk. I'll see you later. So what is it in that thought process that you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when you're late to work and someone calls you and you're like, hello, and you're like, oh, did I just wake you up? No, I've been up, right? And you just lie about it because you want to be awake or you want to sound awake, but in reality you're not. You just woke up, you got caught. And so, I don't know, is that kind of like the same thought process? Like you just feel you want to do it? Is it like, and I know it's not easier for you to do it, but what is it in the thought process that limits you or, gives you reservation to either like stop or slow down or say, okay, let me hear what he has to say? What is it in that mind of yours?
So, how would you pronounce this? Erasma? Yeah. She puts it beautifully. The dirty word is control. I'm a control freak. I need to have control. I need to have it my way. I need it to all work out. And the sick part about it is I will be losing my mind. But once I get through it, it's almost like this badge of honor or this pat on the back. And I don't know who's supposed to come do that for me and say, you're an amazing mom. Look at all the things that you've done. And the sick part is nobody is around to see all the things I do. So who am I doing this for? Like, who has this list of expectations that I'm trying to live up to? And all I want to know is that I'm doing a good job. And I think that's what a lot of people do is and I think this is our society too. We always want to be busy or give this perception that we're doing the most. And how dare you relax? How dare you rest? How dare you do the bare minimum? Knowing goodness well, we're tired after the bare minimum, but we stretch ourselves. And then we get mad that nobody helps. And then it's toxic. And even having this conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is then I feel like we're still looked at as, oh, he don't do that, or or in your own, because from experience and research, right, it happens then in the mind, where it's, oh, I wish he would do more, or I wish he would take initiative, or but so how do from men or men that will listen, right? What would you say is a different approach to take to understand and know, you it's too much. And for us or for you to let go some of that control and speak and use your words and say, hey, um, you know, can you take, can you take it for a walk or can you take it somewhere, or I'm feeling a certain way or whatever the case is. And so what are some ways that from having those things within us, what are some ways that we can have that conversation? Or what are some ways that, because another man could be in a situation, right? And he could take it personal, or he can, be resentful in the sense of, uh, like let's say what you do or what that person does, it's done on a public scale. And
Yeah.
let's say that chaos is seen on a public scale. And then those people start to formulate a thought process towards the spouse.
Yeah.
Because if he can see it, guess who else can see it?
Yeah.
Other people. And if he's a man who's a dum dum or man, that because society says like men don't know, and men see it. And but if they can see it, a lot of other people are gonna be able to see it. And the thing is, nobody will be willing to say it or talk about it or bring it up because of the fear of offending chaos. And when we have these internal issues, we have to understand that there is a benefit of the doubt thought process that is given to people to where it is basically approved or accepted or for them to be this way. But we have to be responsible and we have to say, like, look, no, my issues growing up showed me what anxiety was. It showed me what anger was. It showed me what this was and this was, and you're doing it. Right. And then if then vice versa. And hey, my experiences that show me this is what this is and this is what this is. And I feel like you're showing that. You're like, man, and it takes just the other person to be like, oh, I never really thought about that. And how so? You know, okay, I hear what you're saying. Where do you think that comes from? It's just so much of a conversation that people are not willing to have. It's easier to just say this, that's just how men are, that's just how women are, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's so much easier, and it pisses me off because so many people struggle and so many people are hurting, and they're hurting their relationship, they're hurting their marriage, they're hurting their children because it's just easier to do so.
And you
And
know one thing
so,
that you're saying, because man, this is so good. I'm trying to hone in, but it's like this goes to so many areas because I can easily say, well, my controlling issues is because I didn't have my daddy. You know what I mean? Though I feel like that could be part of it, you know what I mean? See, but it's also the lack of an example. Um, and I come from a family where my father was very engaging. My stepfather Poppy, he was. And then I have my mom too, and she's dealing with her own thing because she was also raised by a single mom at one point. And so a lot of these things are generational, and it's like I don't even know what to expect of you because what does that look like? What is it? It's so weird too because society gives you this equal. It's either every part needs to be equal or men ain't crap or you got to do it on your own. And I'll be honest, it wasn't until I was on social media more often and seeing a lot of these mom contents that it kind of accelerated or expanded, some thoughts I had in my mind, like in the sense of, yeah, why don't y'all change diapers? Yeah, why am I always the one rushing? You know what I mean? A lot of stuff, and it kind of made me even more resentful towards you, because I'm like, oh, this isn't a me thing. This is a man thing. You know what I mean? And I do believe there are a lot of men out there that, just aren't doing their part. But then even we're not also creating a space for men to do their part, because we don't know what that looks like. We're afraid to lose control. What did that mean for me? Am I a lazy mom if I split roles? You know what I mean? So it's very strange. It's very weird. And I pray that we can have more conversations about this, and you guys will give you guys more example as time goes on, to flush out even more, because I feel like we're the perfect wall. I think we're the type of people that are just resilient. In the sense of, we're gonna talk it out and we're gonna figure out as much as we can. But ultimately, we're not leaving each other, and we're not leaving our children. So it's kind of like, once that kind of gets off the table, because I think a lot of people operate out of fear, in the sense of, it's easier to expect a man to leave. It's easier to expect a split household. And so we prepare for that versus preparing for staying. Or we prepare for that in the sense of, well, once we get a divorce, it's all on me now, and not holding that other parent accountable. Because I also see women, they get divorced and now the man don't do nothing, just give me child support. And we'll say, just give me child support, I'll handle everything else. Well, why? That's making your life harder, but that's socially acceptable, And so we'll continue the conversation. But what I can honestly say to you from my heart is, I appreciate you and men like you that are, because sometimes we could also think that women are the only ones doing the inner work. I want to salute you and men like you that are doing the inner work and asking those questions, because sometimes we don't know it all. And just like sometimes men need to be mothered, some of us need to be fathered. And I appreciate how you're fathering our children, and it's also fathering me. And how you are with them. I've also seen a change in our marriage, in the sense of when it was single Jonathan versus when it's dad Jonathan. And it's gotten better and sweeter with each child that we've had. I've seen you be more patient with me, and it could be the kids got on your last nerve. So, I don't know, but I want you to know I appreciate it. And as we continue to deal with daddy issues, I just pray that we get to build a legacy of, and I pray this for all families, even if they're not together, build a legacy of a united front, even if it's just for the sake of the kids.
Yeah, and people, how people feel with those issues that they have is valid. It's not that they're not valid, but now that we've addressed them, now what do we do about it?
Yeah.
That's it. And people don't like that. Some people don't like that. They want to hold on to it. And like you said it earlier, it's like they like going through the struggle. It's like choosing to be broke so that you can gain honor and credit that you went through a struggle. So you're going to choose to stay broke or live paycheck to paycheck. Nah, man, I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. I don't like not having money. I don't like not being able to enjoy myself. I don't like going down that road. And so it's valid, but then now what do we do about it? And if you have people in your life, or male figures in your life that will kind of challenge you on those things, don't take offense to it, right? And kind of get to know where their heart is at. Like, are you asking, like, and because to make you feel more comfortable, it's okay to ask. And if they're asking if they're asking you with the right intention and the right heart, they're not going to have any issues explaining to you why they're asking or why they're wanting to understand. They're not going to have no problem with it, because their desire is for you to be your best self, right? Or they've gone and seen something that they're willing to put the relationship at risk just for the betterment of you or the betterment of the relationships. And so, cool, whatever it is that you went through, whatever it is you're holding on to, you feel has affected you, is valid. But now, what are we doing about it?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Jonathan Ortiz. That's such a great way to end this conversation and this whole series. Okay, now that we're aware of daddy issues, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to move forward? How are we going to better ourselves, better our relationships, and better the livelihood of our children? And I think that's really, at the end of the day, what we want to do. So thank you, sir, so much for your time, your insight, and your example. I also want to thank everybody that has tuned in for your comments. So I said we're so proud of you both. I don't know what this means, Nigel, but okay. WK, I don't know. He was in Italy for some time. I don't know. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I pray that we all continue the conversations of, okay, now that we're aware of it, what we're going to do about it. And we would love to hear your thoughts, some things that you've gone through to kind of help alleviate the control, even on down to how do you build an expectation list for yourself and for your significant other? Like, what would help be? Like, I don't do laundry anymore because we had that conversation. It's just too much. So Jonathan goes to work and he does laundry. That for us works. What will work for you, especially when we're talking about the mental load. So don't, okay, I'm gonna move on. But thank you guys for tuning in. What do you want to say?
Amen.
Okay. Yeah, it means when you know. Yes, agreed. So we hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and feel free to comment below. We'll check the comments throughout the week. Any thoughts, any ideas, any experiences, even if you want to flesh it out even more. And if you guys want more conversations like these, let me know. We definitely have no problem doing them. We just want to be mindful that we're all going through a lot, especially this holiday season. And we want to encourage everybody to stay in the fight. You're worth it. And so is your family. So, all right. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.